Hello and welcome to LanguageCraft for episode 7 of Let's Timelapse. Now as we are cruising above the roofs of the houses in the center of the village, we can see towards the periphery what we've done so far. All the fields and all the sort of worker houses that fill them. And we're going to have a couple of shots just to see what we've done so far. All of these numerous houses, dilapidated houses, and of course the inn. Now, some thought that it was a bit strange to have an inn outside of town with room for horses. But not everyone has the money to go into the town itself. You know that actually the bridge will have a toll booth that we'll build in later episodes and people will have to pay to get in. And last week I talked about couriers. They would just stay outside the village, wait for their message to be delivered, wait for an answer, and then leave. They need to have horses for their trade, but they don't necessarily have a lot of money. Generally speaking, it's important for people to store their horses when they go about their business, not necessarily taking them into the center of town. But first things first, last time I said that the fields weren't finished, and I wasn't lying. So here we are to finish them off. Last time a lot of people commented to say that they weren't really realistic this way, and I agree, especially the fact that the wheat goes all the way up to the walls of the houses, right up under the windows. That's definitely something that we want to get rid of, so I'm using a World Edit brush to push them back a little bit, just to have a couple blocks around the houses where we can have grass, and we will actually have, tall grass there that I'll put around with bone meal at a later date. But we're also making a hole for the next structure that will come in the fields. And I'm sure a lot of you guessed it, this building is the windmill. A lot of people suggested it, and indeed, it seems impossible not to build a windmill for fields at that time. Nowadays, you could grind the wheat somewhere else, but during medieval times, everything was done on the spot, especially when this wheat served to feed the village right next to it. Now, the build technique I'm using is a little strange, because this windmill was actually entirely built once before by myself, Mimi Lala, Psylo, and Théophile, who are members of the LanguageCraft build team. They helped me find the design, especially of the base of the windmill, and so it makes for a strange way of building, since I already know where each block has to go. I'm going off screenshots that I took. But it allows you to see how you can bring together dilapidated and symmetry. All four sides are exactly the same, which is why I often go around the building, putting each element on all four sides, rather than doing each side one at a time. Also, there is another reason why this windmill might strike you as being just a little strange. Because the base has a lot of cobblestone, as you can see, but as we near the top, we'll be able to see grey wool. Grey wool meaning, center of the village, that's where it came from. There's also spruce wood, but there are also jungle planks, and the roofs are actually closer to the ones in the village than the ones outside of it. So what's going on? Well, at that time, buildings like the windmill belonged to the lord, not to simple inhabitants, simple farmers. So this is a way to have specificities of both build styles. The lord has more money for things like stone, and the grey wool definitely speaks wealth. And on the other side, we've got the spruce wood, and we've got patterns that don't look very wealthy. So this is sort of to bring both worlds together. So this is the big windmill. It really dominates all the fields, and it's high above the inn. And at the moment, I actually think it might be the tallest structure in the whole town. Of course, for the moment. One thing I really love about it are the blades. They're not made out of wool like most of the blades you would find in Minecraft, because I was never convinced by that design. So I looked it up on internet and tried looking at different designs, and I ended up finding a picture of blades built only out of fences. I thought it looked awesome and much closer to reality, so that's the design I chose. Meanwhile, the fields are actually not quite finished. Some people said that I should think about 3-year rotation for my fields. Now, what is 3-year rotation? It's the practice that consists in having 2 types of crops and to switch them around every year, leaving the fields wild with no plantations every 3rd year to replenish them. So, why am I not doing this even though I know I should? Well, I asked Orendo, the history teacher who helps me to be as historically accurate as possible, and he said that the giant fields look too good to cut them up. So, I kind of agree with him. I really love these big fields that you can make in Minecraft. I'd rather have big fields than, a third wheat, a third carrots, things like that. And I have to find the right balance between historical accuracy and aesthetics, and I compromised by building broken down walls here and there. Now the next structure that we've started building is the oven. To me, this is the second big structure needed in the fields after the windmill, because obviously the windmill will grind down the wheat, but then you need to actually bake it into bread. And so that's why it's very important. It's used to bake bread, which is the most basic form of food at the time, and for quite a few families it was actually the only thing they ate, pretty much. They had meat maybe once a year. Now, this building is also something that belonged to the Lord, which is why part of it is built out of stone brick. Now, I changed a lot of things while I was building this. I had a basic layout in my mind, but I kept changing my mind. For example, the posts move several times. On the left, you can see a sort of a barn entrance to store all the wheat. And on the right is something a bit more solid. I was originally going to add a story to the right, but decided to add it to the left instead, because otherwise the chimney that you can see raising up would have been much too high. So the left is for storage and living quarters, right is for the kitchen itself and the baking. And actually that roof that you can see on the right was actually brought down afterwards because I thought it was just a tad too high. Now for the smoke, you can see I used the age-old technique of spider webs. It's the right color, it's got holes to see through it, and the shape is good, so if you didn't know that trick, you should definitely use it. That's something that I've seen in a lot of places, and I'm planning on adding chimneys in the whole village, and I definitely intend on using that everywhere. So here you can see the end of the living quarters, and I keep things imperfect like the rest of the village. Not that much actually, but you'll see when we hit the cinematic that I've broken things up more than they are right now. And here we are. The outskirts of the village are almost finished. Now you can see a scarecrow right at the front with a wither head. I've made a few here and there that you'll be able to see when you walk around the map after you download it at the end of the season. So to me there are 3 important buildings in this area. The inn that we just passed, the windmill that really looms above everything else, and the oven, which keeps everyone from starving. That can be useful. Now apparently some people thought that there were too many houses in the fields. But actually, things were very different in those days from today. Each farmer had a small field, not a big one. You have, like in the States, you have these huge round fields that needs manufacturing. They didn't have that at the time. Also, the way this village was built, most farmers actually worked the Lord's fields, not their own. Someone who had his own field was actually quite well off. Not everyone was able to have that. Now the oven gave me a lot of trouble because I didn't know which shape I wanted to give it. In the end, I think it turned out really good, and it's not huge, which is good. It's just an oven. It doesn't need to be a whole huge building. It's 3 rooms, that's good. As for the sponges that you may have seen inside the warehouse, it's because I'm still in 1.5 in this version, and I don't have hay bales yet. When I release the map for download, I will update them so that you have hay bales inside. but I decided I would only switch versions between seasons and not in the middle of one to make sure I keep the same look with the shaders and because I want things to stay coherent. Anyway, this last shot is a global view of the fields from the village. It's not that bad. I'd like to have that when I look outside my window, especially with the sun setting like that. And here is the updated map for this episode. So not that many changes, but just enough to make everything more coherent. And the couple structures that were missing in the outskirts, the windmill and the oven, and really add to its authenticity. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time for episode 8, where we will be coming back inside the center of the village for something of a bit of a larger scale, shall we say. See you next time, bye bye.